It was the summer of 1943, and the skies over Italy would never be the same again. Italian pilots, accustomed to dogfights in their elegant but fragile aircraft, took to the air, expecting another contest of skill and maneuver. But what they encountered instead was a beast of a machine, unlike anything they had faced before, the F4U Corsair. In a matter of minutes, Italy's finest were humbled by the sheer power and versatility of the American fighter. But how could one aircraft change the course of the air war in the Mediterranean? The scene was set in the skies above Sicily during the Allied invasion, known as Operation Husky. Italy's Regia Aeronautica was still reeling from years of attrition and shortages. Pilots were trained with the best they had, flying aircraft like the Machi C205 Veltros, a formidable machine in its own right, but increasingly outclassed by new American technology. By the summer of 1943, however, the introduction of the F4U Corsair into the Mediterranean theater would alter everything. Armed with 650 caliber machine guns and a robust airframe, the Corsair was built not just for aerial dogfights, but for commanding the skies and dominating the battlefield. Italian aviators, confident in their agility and skill, faced an unexpected foe. The Corsair's devastating firepower, rugged design, and exceptional speed left them in disbelief. Within moments, Italian pilots realized that their tactics and prideful machines were no match for this new challenger. But this clash was more than just one plane against another. It was a story of technological superiority, industrial might, and a fundamental shift in the balance of air combat. The Corsair's arrival would mark the beginning of the end for Italy's air dominance. The battle for Sicily was a turning point in World War II, one that exposed the vulnerabilities of the Regia Aeronautica. By early 1943, Italy's air force was already strained, with fewer aircraft in service and pilots facing mounting losses. With the introduction of the F4U Corsair, the balance of power in the skies had shifted. The Corsair's ability to dive faster, climb higher, and outgun its opponents left Italian pilots struggling to keep up. In the months leading up to Operation Husky, Italian pilots relied on their Machi C202 Fulgor and the newer, more advanced Machi C205 Veltros. These aircraft were designed for agility and speed, characteristics that worked well against earlier Allied models. The Veltros, with its top speed of nearly 400 miles per hour, was considered one of the best fighters Italy could produce. However, this top speed meant little when facing the American Corsair, which could reach speeds of over 400 miles per hour and had a dive rate that left Italian pilots gasping for air. The Corsair's introduction into the Mediterranean theater, particularly during the fierce battles over Sicily, was a game-changer. Initially, Italian pilots underestimated the Corsair, thinking it was just another American fighter they could outmaneuver. But they quickly learned that the Corsair didn't play by the same rules. Reports from Italian pilots began to echo a similar refrain. The Corsair was too fast, too rugged, and too powerful. Pilots who once thought they could outfly Spitfires or P-42s found themselves outclassed in every way. In the meantime, American pilots flying the Corsair had a different story to tell. Their machines could take damage and still bring them back home. Many Allied pilots praised the Corsair for its durability, even as Italian aircraft were often destroyed with just a few hits. In the heat of battle, the Corsair's ability to keep fighting after absorbing hits made it a symbol of American industrial might. The impact was not only tactical but psychological. For the Italians, the Corsair's arrival represented a collapse of confidence. Their carefully honed strategies and tactics were suddenly rendered obsolete by one machine, forcing them to adapt to a rapidly changing battlefield. As the Allies stormed Sicily in the summer of 1943, the battle in the skies reached its peak. For Italy's Regia Aeronautica, it was a desperate struggle to hold on to air superiority. The Veltros, their best fighter, was their last line of defense. But against the Corsair, it was hopeless. In one of the most critical air battles of the Mediterranean campaign, Italian pilots were forced into a corner. With the arrival of the Corsair, the Italian strategy of tight, agile dogfighting began to fall apart. The Veltros, though highly maneuverable at medium altitudes, couldn't compete with the Corsair's power in vertical combat. The Corsair would climb away from the Veltro with ease, leaving Italian pilots to chase a shadow. The once proud Veltro, which had earned respect for its speed and firepower, was now at a severe disadvantage. The Corsair's superiority on the battlefield was so evident that even veteran Italian pilots began to question their confidence. Survivor accounts from this period reveal the psychological toll it took on them. "We were always one step behind," said one veteran. "The Corsair would dive at us, then climb straight up, and we couldn't follow. It was like fighting a ghost." The sacrifices made by both sides were immense. While Italian pilots fought bravely, they were constantly faced with insurmountable odds. Many of them had to reckon with the truth that their beloved aircraft could no longer hold their own in the face of such technological superiority. The loss of these pilots was not just a military blow, but a blow to morale. For the Allies, the Corsair's victory was symbolic of the broader technological divide that had grown between the two sides. In the skies over Sicily, the outcome was clear. The Corsair was not just a new aircraft, it was a testament to American industry, ingenuity, and tactical dominance. As the battle for Sicily raged on, the Regia Aeronautica found itself in retreat. By September of 1943, Italy had signed an armistice, and the once proud Air Force had been shattered. In the wake of the Allied victory, Italian pilots were left to pick up the pieces, facing the harsh truth that they could no longer compete against the technological might of the Allies. For the Americans, the Corsair proved its worth beyond the Pacific. It became the symbol of Allied air superiority over Sicily and the Mediterranean. But for the Italians, it was the beginning of the end. The technological gap had grown so vast that the once elite pilots of the Regia Aeronautica were now outclassed in every way. The human cost of this shift was staggering. Hundreds of Italian pilots lost their lives in those final months as the overwhelming power of the Corsair decimated their ranks. Those who survived were left to face an air force that was no longer the dominant force it once was. For the Italians, the war was no longer a contest of equals but a desperate fight for survival in the face of a rapidly changing battlefield. For the Allies, the Corsair was the ultimate symbol of victory. It had proven its versatility, its power, and its ability to reshape the skies. But even as they celebrated their technological triumph, the memory of the sacrifice made by so many brave pilots on both sides remained. In the end, the battle for Sicily was not just a contest of aircraft. It was a testament to the human spirit and the relentless march of progress. The impact of the Corsair extended far beyond the skies over Sicily. As the war in the Mediterranean came to a close, the Corsair's legacy lived on. It was more than just a fighter aircraft. It was a symbol of American ingenuity, industrial might, and tactical superiority. In the years following World War II, the Corsair would continue to inspire generations of aviators, engineers, and military strategists. For the Italian pilots who had faced the Corsair, the war had changed them forever. Many of them would never forget the moment they realized their best machines were no match for the American fighter. But even in defeat, they gained a new respect for the technological innovations that had defined the conflict. The Corsair's legacy was not just one of battlefield success, but of the wider transformation in warfare. It demonstrated that technology, when coupled with industrial strength, could shift the balance of power in ways that were previously unimaginable. The lessons learned from the Corsair would influence future generations of aircraft design, military strategy, and warfare as a whole. The story of the Corsair is one of triumph, sacrifice, and the inevitable march of progress. It was a reminder that in war, technology and innovation often determine the outcome, and that even the most skilled and courageous pilots can be overwhelmed by the power of machines. The Corsair proved that the future of air combat belonged to those who could harness the power of innovation.